It all began on a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. The days blur together when you're chasing an elusive muse. I was on my way back from another fruitless trip to the art supply store, feeling the familiar weight of a blank canvas on my soul. That's when I saw it. Tucked away in an alley, cast aside like a forgotten thought, was a chair. It wasn't just any chair. It was carved from a deep, rich wood, its lines elegant, yet worn. It looked like it had stories to tell, and as an artist, stories are my currency. So, I heaved it onto my shoulder and carried it home, oblivious to the fact that I wasn't just carrying a piece of furniture, but the weight of 100 different lives. That first night, I placed it in the corner of my studio. It seemed to watch me, its dark wood soaking in the lamplight. I was exhausted, so I fell into bed, hoping for a dreamless sleep. But the chair had other plans. I found myself not in my own dream, but in someone else's memory. I was in a grand ballroom, decades ago. A young woman in a shimmering gown laughed, her hand held by a soldier whose uniform was crisp and new. I could feel her joy, the flutter in her heart, the warmth of his hand. It was so real, so vivid. When you walk up, the scent of her perfume, a faint whisper of jasmine, still lingered in the air. I sat up, my heart pounding. I looked over at the chair. It was just a chair, wasn't it? The next night, I was a child again, but not me. I was a little boy, hiding under a dining table, listening to the hushed, angry whispers of his parents. I felt his fear, the way his small hands clenched into fists, the salty taste of a tear he refused to let fall. I woke up with a knot in my stomach, the phantom ache of a family cracking apart. I knew then, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that it was the chair. It wasn't just wood and varnish. It was a vessel, a library of moments, of every soul who had ever sought rest within its arms. I should have been terrified. I should have thrown it out, burned it, anything to sever the connection. But the artist in me, the part that starves for stories, was captivated. I was addicted. So I started sitting in it. During the day, I'd sketch, trying to capture the faces I'd seen in my dreams. The young lover, the frightened boy, an old man smiling at a sunset only he could see. My art had never felt so alive, so full of genuine emotion. The chair was feeding my creativity, giving me access to the purest wellspring of human experience. But each night, the dreams became more intense. I lived through moments of profound love, witnessed heartbreaking betrayals, and felt the sting of bitter regret. I was becoming a ghost in other people's lives, a silent observer to their greatest triumphs and deepest sorrows. It was exhilarating, and it was draining me. One night, the dream was different. The world was awash in sound, a symphony that was both chaotic and beautiful. I was in a dimly lit study, surrounded by scattered sheets of music. My hands, or rather, his hands hovered over a piano, trembling. I felt a desperate, clawing frustration. He was a composer, and he was chasing a melody that was just out of reach. The music was magnificent, a storm of passion and pain, but it was incomplete. There was a missing piece, a final resolution he couldn't find. The pressure in his chest was immense, a feeling of failure so profound it was suffocating. His name echoed in the dream, not spoken, but felt. Alistair. I woke up gasping for air, the phantom notes of the unfinished symphony ringing in my ears. A little research was all it took. Alistair Finch, a brilliant composer from the 1930s, praised as a genius, who vanished at the height of his fame. He was working on his final piece, the Symphony of Echoes, which critics at the time said was cursed. They claimed it drove him mad, that the music was too powerful for one person to contain. He was last seen in his study, and then, nothing. He and his symphony were lost to time, and his favorite chair, the one he always sat in while composing, an old, hand-carved piece of dark wood, my chair. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The symphony wasn't just a collection of notes. It was his life, his soul, poured into music. The chair didn't just hold his memory, it held his unfinished legacy. The dreams grew more insistent after that. Every night, I was back in that study with Alistair. I felt his obsession, the burning need to finish his masterpiece. The symphony was a living thing, and it was calling out, not just to him, but now, to me. The melody that had haunted him now haunted me. I found myself humming it during the day, scribbling notes on scraps of paper, trying to capture the ethereal chords that filled my sleep. I was no composer, just a painter, but the music flowed through me, demanding to be born. It was a terrifying and beautiful proposition. The chair was offering me a choice. I could finish Alistair's work. I could give his spirit peace and bring his symphony into the world. But there was a warning in the dreams, a whisper of the cause. The curse, it wasn't a curse of magic or spirits, but of obsession. The symphony demanded everything. Alistair had poured his entire being into it until there was nothing left. It had consumed him. Was I willing to risk the same fate? To lose myself in another man's art, another man's passion? My own canvases were gathering dust in the corner. My own stories were going untold while I lived out the stories of others. The chair had given me so much a connection to humanity I'd always craved, but it was also threatening to erase me. I stood before the chair, the weight of 100 lives and one great, unfinished work pressing down on me. I could destroy it. I could smash it to pieces, silence the echoes forever, and reclaim my own quiet life, my own art. The thought was a release from the pressure. I could go back to being just me, an artist struggling with a blank canvas. Or I could take the risk. I could sit in the chair one last time, not as an observer, but as a collaborator. I could pick up the pen where Alistair had left off, lend my soul to his, and try to find that final, missing chord. It might be the greatest thing I ever create, or it might be the last. Art is a conversation across time. We are all echoes of those who came before us, and our own voices will one day echo for those who follow. The chair taught me that. It taught me that every life, no matter how small or quiet, leaves a trace, a memory, a story. And what is art, if not the act of listening to those stories and giving them a voice? I looked from the chair to my blank canvas, and for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly what I had to paint, and what I had to compose. The choice was made. I was ready to hear the end of the symphony. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing and hitting that like button. It helps more than you know. Until next time, keep searching for the stories hidden in the world around you.